Georgia was incorporated into the Russian Empire by armed force in 1801. Following the breakup of the Russian Empire, Georgia restored its independence in 1918. The First Democratic Republic of Georgia. May the 26th, Tbilisi, Georgia.
Fellow citizens, in this very chamber, one country has died, the Transcaucasian Democratic Federation Republic. And now, in this same chamber, the foundations are being laid for a new country, a democratic Georgia.
These are the words with which Noe Giordania, future chairman of the Georgian government, addressed the members of the National Council as the country adopted its act of independence. Georgia's Declaration of Independence. With this text, the founders of this new Georgia stated the principles on which their country would be established.
Independent Georgia will take the political form of a democratic republic. Within its borders, the Democratic Republic of Georgia guarantees equally the civil and political rights of every citizen, irrespective of ethnicity, nationality, religious faith, social condition, or sex.
February 1919. Parliamentary elections are held in Georgia. The citizens of the country give free expression to their own political will. The Social Democratic Party wins the majority of votes and goes on to form a government. In the country's supreme legislative body, elected deputies from 3 other parties form an opposition party. 5 women, as well as representatives from almost every ethnic minority living in Georgia, enter the country's parliament, the Constituent Assembly. The Georgian Democratic Republic, which was in existence for a mere 3 years, was the first social democratic country in Europe. 1920, September. Members of the Second International visit Georgia. Ethel Snowdon, member of the British Labour Party.
You're very close to the country of terror, and yet you've resolved to fight them even unto death. I promise you that as soon as we return to Europe, our delegation will use every means at its disposal to raise awareness of Georgia's independence and to establish economic relations with you.
Albert Ingalls, Executive Director of the Second International.
What I saw during 2 days was true bravery. Nowhere else have I seen such a fearless nation.
During the period of the First Republic's existence, important new policies were implemented. The boundaries of the state were established, agricultural issues were resolved according to the interests of working people in the countryside, the government was divided into legislative, executive and judicial branches. Equality before the law was enshrined in legislation, the judiciary was reformed, a regular army was created and a People's Guard was formed. Institutions of local government were created through democratic elections, as were trade unions. Political pluralism was guaranteed through the creation of a multi-party system. Protections were introduced to ensure freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the free operation of religious, cultural, and educational institutions. Universal suffrage was introduced, along with many other civil rights. In February 1921, Georgia adopted a constitution, a document which still has a place of honor in constitutional history, thanks to its spirit of freedom and inherently democratic outlook. This document reveals a lot about life in the Georgian state at the time, as well as the concerns and attitudes of people during this period. The Constitution affirms the equality of all citizens before the law and outlaws discrimination based on social class. It affirms the equality of both sexes and guarantees their political, civil, economic and domestic rights. During its 3 years of existence, more than 20 foreign states, including Russia, formally recognized Georgia's independence. Following the restoration of statehood, Georgia focused its foreign policy on both gaining international recognition of its sovereignty and conducting independent foreign relations. Georgia opened diplomatic missions in Central Europe, Austria, Italy, Germany, and the Swiss Confederation. News footage of the fighting in February 1921. Despite this recognition, In February 1921, Soviet Russia attacked and occupied Georgia. (1991) News footage of the restoration of Georgian independence. In 1991, Georgia regained its independence. Independent Georgia is the legal and political heir of the First Republic, and even today, the state is founded on the same values that were adopted 100 years ago by our forebears in the Declaration of Independence and the country's constitution.
I am Georgian, and therefore I am European.
Since that time, Georgia has been progressing towards EU integration path, introducing forward-thinking reforms, strengthening democracy, the rule of law, protecting human rights, and building a liberal economy. Today, Georgia is an associate country of the European Union and an aspirant country of NATO, recognized as a leading reformer by its partners.
National Anthem of Georgia. Excellencies, Mr. President, my dear colleague ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, thank you all for joining us today on this very special day for us as we celebrate our National Day, centennial of the First Democratic Republic of Georgia, and also a special commemorative stamp that United Nations issued to mark 850th anniversary of a 12th century Georgian poet, thinker, philosopher, a luminary, Shora Rustaveli, and his epic poem, Knight in Panther Skin. Rustaveli's philosophy is embedded in Georgian culture, in Georgian psyche. His words that he said more than 8 centuries ago resonates today. Who seeks not a friend is his own foe. Is it not the spirit of the United Nations? And it is that in this spirit, my country, although having challenges that it faces, including with regard to the territorial integrity of which you well know, contributes to peace and security through participation in peacekeeping operations worldwide, is a reliable partner in the field of development through our outreach programs and by sharing our experience, reformed experience in good governance. And human rights is at the heart and the core of it all, as it befits the wisdom of Rustaveli, because we believe that good shall always overcome the evil. And we have faith in this, and we have our faith in the United Nations and in UN family. May I ask our President of the General Assembly, Mr. Miroslav Lajčák, to come to the podium. His Excellency, President of the General Assembly.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Mikadze, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, tonight there is a lot to celebrate. First, the statehood of Georgia, because it's been 100 years since the founding of the first Georgian Republic, and this is a big milestone. And secondly, the work of Rustaveli, who played a major role in shaping Georgian literature and poetry. It's been hundreds of years since his death, but these stamps, issued by the United Nations Postal Administration, are part of a legacy which lives on. And to mark these celebrations, I'll make three main points. First, I want to briefly look back at the last 100 years of Georgia's history. It is a history that has been defined by a commitment to independence. In 1918, the state of Georgia was declared for the first time. Although it was absorbed into the Soviet Union, the country's independence was restored in 1991. Throughout this history, Georgia has been known for its diversity, acting as a home to many nationalities and ethnic groups. People all over the world also recognize Georgia's hospitality and strong culture and traditions. Secondly, tonight I want to point to Georgia's commitment to multilateralism. Very soon after regaining its independence, the country made United Nations membership a priority. It signed up to the United Nations Charter in 1992, and the Office of the United Nations was established in Tbilisi a year later. Georgian people have had an impact on this organization's evolution. They have helped to shape the work of its most important bodies, from ECOSOC to the Human Rights Council, as well as various processes of the General Assembly. Here I want to pay tribute to Ambassador Mikadze, one of our two excellent co-facilitators of the intergovernmental negotiations on the Security Council reform. Also, when it comes to international peace and security, Georgia has played its part. Georgian peacekeepers have been crucial to peace operations, including in Afghanistan, Mali, and Central African Republic. And I'm sad to say that some have not come home. Tonight is a good opportunity to pay tribute to their sacrifice. Georgia's commitment to multilateralism is clear also on the regional stage. The country is a key partner to the European Union, and steps towards integration are impressive. And before I conclude, and as my third point, I'll go back to Rustaveli. His epic 12th century poem, A Knight in the Panther's Skin, is seen as a masterpiece, not only by Georgians, but by people around the world and people throughout the ages. Many of the messages in his poem are relevant today. For example, the importance of gender equality, of compromise and negotiation, and of knowledge over misperception. The stamps launched today remind us of these values, and they acknowledge Georgia's contribution to our global cultural heritage and to our multilateral landscape. So thank you for inviting me to join tonight's celebration, and happy National Day to our Georgian friends near and far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I now invite Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Georgia, Her Excellency, Khatuna TSKHLADZE.
Mr. President, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, this year Georgia celebrates 100th anniversary of the first Democratic Republic of Georgia. And today here at the UN premises, among the friends of my country, with the whole international community, we commemorate this very special day, and at the same time, we honor the great Georgian poet Shotaru Staveli by presenting the post stamp dedicated to his 850th anniversary. First of all, I would like to express gratitude to the United Nations Postal Administration for the successful cooperation that made it possible to release this post stamp and give us the opportunity to celebrate the important anniversaries for the people of Georgia in a very special way. It's symbolic that today we are honoring Shotaru Staveli and his poem, The Night in Patterned Skin, the literary work which reflects the universal values of the mankind: friendship, humanism, freedom, gender equality. For its literary and philosophical values, the Georgian national epic poem is considered to be the masterpiece of the world literature. At the same time, we mark the centennial anniversary of the restoration of Georgia's independence, when the country embarked on a path of democratic development. The first Democratic Republic of Georgia only existed for 3 years, but was the one that was founded on the most advanced ideas and values that resonate with the fundamental principles laid at the core of the United Nations mission. 100 years ago, our ancestors established high humanistic standards by advancing the idea of peace and security, protection of human rights, fundamental freedoms for all, without distinction of race, sex, language, or religion, rule of law, foundation of independent judiciary, abolition of death penalty. And these fundamental principles of the country's democratic development were outlined in the Independence Act of Georgia, declared the same day the independence was announced. Particularly interesting is the Constituent Assembly elections in 1919, the first elections in the history of independent Georgia, remarkable for its high level of democracy and freedom. Especially significant is the fact that Georgia was one of the first states where the women gained the electoral rights. Moreover, 5 women were elected in the governing body, actively promoting social, political, and civil rights for women. The idea of gender equality in Georgia was not new, as Georgia as a state was flourished under the rule of the Queen Tamar. That is the period known as Golden Age in the history of Georgia, when Shotaru Staveli's epic poem was written as well. During the brief existence of the first Democratic Republic of Georgia, the Constitution, the first ever modern fundamental law in the nation's history, was adopted. The Constitution determined the political division of the state and its territorial organization, a wide spectrum of rights and freedoms, legal system, both fiscal and monetary policies, as well as provided a series of regulations on defense, national language, agriculture, ethnic minorities, and the national symbol of public education. The values that laid at the foundation of the first Democratic Republic of Georgia manifest the identity of my country. Commitment to these very values made modern Georgia so active in terms of consolidation of democracy, human rights protection, rule of law, good governance, transparency, and economic reforms. We have fulfilled the dream of our historic ancestors, and today Georgia is on its irreversible path to becoming an integral part of European family. This evening, we also have the opportunity to enjoy the musical project of the famous Georgian pianist and composer Giorgi Mikadze, Georgian Overtones, together with the trio of singers from Georgian folk ensemble BASIANI, presenting our rich heritage and contemporary culture potential. I wish you a good evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May I now invite again President of the General Assembly and, of course, Assistant Secretary General, Mr. Saunders, to join us to unveil the stamp.
Thank you. Ambassador Ignaz, Mr. Miroslav Lajčák, Madame Totsladze, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here today on behalf of the Department of Management and the United Nations Postal Administration to celebrate the National Day of Georgia. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Georgian Mission on the 100 years of the foundation of the First Democratic Republic of Georgia. The United Nations Postal Administration is honored to have worked with the Permanent Mission of Georgia to design a new stamp sheet to commemorate the 850th anniversary of Shota Rustaveli, the renowned medieval Georgian poet who was the author of the epic poem, A Knight in Panther's Skin. This eminent poet of the Georgian Golden Age was one of the greatest contributors to Georgian literature. A Knight in Panther's Skin is considered to be one of his greatest works. The stamp sheet features 10 stamps, each in euro 80 cents denomination, with the United Nations emblem. The background of the sheet features the portrait of Shota Rustaveli, and the tabs of the stamps feature beautiful imagery from this classic poem. The sheet was designed by Rory Katz of the Postal Administration's graphic design team, who is here with us today. The United Nations Postal Administration plays a unique role in sending messages around the globe about the activities and achievements of the United Nations and its agencies and its member states through the issuance of postage stamps. They are miniature works of art acting as small communications ambassadors. On behalf of the Department Management, we are truly grateful to everyone involved in the shared effort of organizing this event. We are very proud to add these stamps to the United Nations collection. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Saunders. Of course, without this great cooperation, this wonderful event would not have happened. Now it's showtime, and we have this wonderful ensemble here, great project, Georgian Overtones, by a renowned Georgian American, I would say, jazz musician, pianist, composer, and his Giorgi Mikadze and his ensemble with a folk ensemble, BASIANI. Giorgi is also a Yamaha artist, and I also want to extend thanks to Yamaha for their support to this event. Let's enjoy the show.
better.